Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Miranda and today we are talking about my TBR list for August. We are back in Orilium for the autumn semester and I am reading 9 books in August. So 6 of those books follow my normal classes and 3 of them are for an extra class that I am taking. Before we get started, I have one announcement to make. And that is, other than this video, which is coming out on a Friday, sorry, the next video and all preceding videos are going to start coming out at Thursdays at 10 a.m. So that is starting August 3rd. So next Thursday, I will have a video out at 10 a.m. This is I'm just rearranging my schedule. I'm giving myself the weekends to record rather than trying to edit on the weekends and then editing during the week. I have more time during the week to edit, and so it's just kind of flipping it. I used to record on Thursdays and then post on Mondays. Now I'm just posting on Thursdays and having the weekend to record if I need to. So next video coming out August 3rd, and that will be my wrap-up for July. Yeah, so I'm very excited, and let's go ahead and get started. So obviously I am drinking something today. Today I'm just drinking water. It's pretty late in the day. It's now about 8 o'clock and I don't need coffee, but I did have a coffee when I got home. I got more Nespresso pods. So I got a coffee when I got home. And of course we have Marvin with us today. And I do have a second announcement. Maybe. Marvin, shall we tell them the second exciting announcement? Cool, okay. So my second announcement is that I'm gonna try and do a reading vlog during August. We will see how that goes. Hopefully it goes well. I do a lot of reading at work, unfortunately. So I think the plan is after work when I'm in my car, or when I get home, I'll talk about what I read that day. Maybe if the moment comes up, I could do a short little, I just read something interesting, so here are my thoughts right then, but I can't really record during work, but I do want to try and do a reading vlog for August because I do have 9 books, and I think it would be kind of fun. I've never done one before. So yeah, now let's actually get started. A little secret, a little surprise there. So as I was in spring equinox in the autumn, I am still a story weaver. So I have my laptop up to help me. And so I need to get an ordinary, an inscription, a qualified in psionics and divisions, and a distinguished in lore. And then I'm also taking another class. I am taking the demonology class because there's like a side quest that has to do with demonology. And I thought it'd be fun to do a little demonology class. And so I'm going to get distinguished in the demonology class. So we're going to start off with inscription. I only need to get an ordinary in that. And the prompt is a book from my end of the year TBR. So I don't know if you saw my TBR Avatar video, but I did have a few books at the bottom that were my end of the year books. And so I picked one of those and I ended up picking Silver in the Wood by Emily Tesh. Ever since I read Some Desperate Glory, I've been really wanting to read another Emily Tesh book, and I didn't realize that this one's actually quite short. I think it's only like 114 pages. According to Storygraph, it's only 114 pages, and I didn't know that. So I'm excited to have a short book and another Emily Tesh book to kind of see, dip my toes into more of her content. And I'm just really excited to read it. So the next class we're going to talk about is psionics and divination. So in order to move up in grades, you have to do the previous one. So to get to qualified, you have to do ordinary. Not in those orders exactly, but you have to get both done. So we're going to start with psionics and divination ordinary. Ooh. And you have to use a random tarot card generator, or to pick from tarot cards. I just used the online tarot card generator that Book Roast sent to us. I don't know. And you have to find some symbol on that tarot card and have that symbol be in either the title or like on the cover. So I got Temperance and I decided to use the yellow flowers. And so I am reading The Last of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. Chokshi? I'm horrible with names. Because she has yellow flowers in her hair. So the yellow flowers from the card, yellow flowers in the book. I tried to get flowers that like kind of matched what the card looked like. Kind of, but I just ended up going with a yellow flower. And I wanted to read it anyway, so heyo. For psionics and divination qualified, the prompt was a book set in the future, and I picked Glory in Death by J.D. Robb. It is the second book in the In Death series. I think there's like 50 of them now, and they're set in like 2050 something, so not super far in the future, but kind of in the future, but in the future enough because it's only 2023. I really liked the first book. It was my biggest gripe with the first book is that my mom recommended it to me, and I think it's weird that it was like a semi-spicy book and my mom recommended that to me, but I tried not to think about it too much. But I was reading it on a plane, and I had nothing else to think about. So I thought about that quite a lot. But I liked it a lot. I liked the murder mystery part. Love me a good murder mystery. I'm horrible at figuring out, like, who did it. I'm really bad at those. But I like them. So that is Psionics and Divination qualified. Alright, my next class is Lore, and we're going with Ordinary. And that is a bookseller's recommendation. I didn't really have time to go to a bookstore and like talk to somebody about it, and I don't know any booksellers, so I changed this to a like book giver, anyone who gives out books. And you know who gives out books? Orilium Girly Winter. So it's pretty much her recommendation. So she told me to read The Vanishing Stair by Maureen Johnson, which is the second book of the Truly Devious series, because I saw her at the beach and I had just finished the Truly Devious series, and she was like, well, I recommend you read the second one, and I was like, hey yo, thank you. So thank you to Orilium Girly Winter. You really helped me out there. Sorry, I just didn't have time to go to a bookstore, and I just don't know anyone who sells books. So I made it work for me. I did. So thank you, Winter, again, for the great recommendation. I'm excited to continue the series and see if any of my intuitions about it are correct. I'm hoping. Don't have a lot of faith, because my intuition's always wrong, but I'm hoping. So the next book in the lore class for Distinguish is to have clothing on the cover. So I went with Chainsaw Man Volume 1. As you can tell, he is wearing clothing. So it counts. I got this book for Christmas from a good friend, Mitchell. I'll post his YouTube channel down below. He does cool commentary videos on video games like Elden Ring and Sekiro and other things like that. And he just talked about anime in one recent one. So he gave this to all of his friends to read. So I'm finally reading it. It's short. I decided I wanted another kind of short book. And it has clothing on the cover. So, Ayo Chainsaw Man. Thanks, Mitchell. So the last book in the lore class for Distinguished is to read a horror book. I went with Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by Eric LaRocca. I ended up buying, the only thing I could buy was Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke and Other Stories. So it's a collection of 3 short stories, but the Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke was originally one short story. It was published by itself. So I'm just going to read the one and count that towards my goal, and I'm not going to read all 3 short stories. If I like the one, maybe I will read the other 2. But I've heard that one's really good and the other 2 are kind of mid. So we're just reading the first one because you had to get it into the collection. But I really only want to read the Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, which is not a short story, another short one. So yeah, excited to read that. Horror. I think this is my first horror book of the year. I've read a couple mysteries, but not horror. So I'm kind of excited to see how that goes. Because I was hoping that the Literally Dead book club would have a horror book, but theirs is another mystery for August. So, wah wah. For me. I'm sure everyone else is perfectly happy with it, but I wanted a horror book because I've never read horror. So I'm excited to see if I get scared. I don't know how I feel about horror books. I like really bad horror movies, like Paranormal Activity. That's about it. So we'll see how I feel about it. So for the extra class, I decided to take Demonology, and I decided to do all 3 grades for it because the side quest is about summoning an impling, and the Demonology class is how, like, you get to learn how to summon the impling, and the side quest is then summoning the impling. So I thought it was a little kind of like role play aspect. Well, if I'm gonna summon an impling, I should take the class on how to do that, how to first what an impling is, then how to summon it, and then like how to train it. You know, if I have an impling, what am I gonna do with it if I don't know anything about it? So I decided to take the extra class, and I thought I could use a couple more books because that was only like 6, and 6 is lame. Even though I'm way ahead of my, like, I'm going way faster than I need to be. But this will give me time in like September and October and November to breathe. Well, I say November. I have another readathon in November. So in September and October, I can relax. Probably only read 1 book those months and still hit my goal. So for the first one, for Ordinary, it was to read the first book I saw on Goodreads/Instagram/other. I ended up going with Goodreads. I probably kind of did this wrong. It was not technically the first book that I saw, but the first book I saw was like book 4 of a series, and I wasn't really feeling it. Sorry. It was like a romance, just a plain romance book, and I wasn't really feeling it. So I went with These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, because that was over on the little, it said recommended, and then it was over there, so I went with that one. So it was the first recommended book to me by Goodreads, so kind of cheating. Sorry, not sorry. I've heard pretty good things about this book. It's just another fantasy book. You know me. I love me some fantasy. It's my favorite genre. But I don't know if you noticed, I'm trying to branch out a little more. Do something other than fantasy. I got a couple non-fantasy books in here, which is crazy. So I'm just trying to, you know, my whole world can't be fantasy, because I'll run out, maybe. I'll run out of good fantasy, that's for sure. Well, I guess that depends on what you think good fantasy is. So yeah, I went with These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. For Demonology Qualified, it was a book with a magical creature. Now, I surprisingly had a difficult time with this one, mostly because a lot of the books in, like, the synopsis, if there's a magical creature involved, unless it's, like, a main part of the book, didn't mention magical creatures, and usually the only magical creature that did get mentioned when it was the main part of the book were dragons, which are magical creatures. But the 2 most, like, prominent dragon books I saw was Fourth Wing and Priory of the Orange Tree. I've read Priory of the Orange Tree. I do need to reread it. I do want to reread it because I think I was a bit too harsh on it when I first read it, because that was like a year ago, and I'm a much different reader now than I was a year ago. And Fourth Wing, I'm just not ready for yet. I've heard it's really not for fantasy girlies. I've heard that, yeah, if you read a whole lot of fantasy, you will probably find this book just like any other fantasy book. But if you don't read a lot of fantasy, then apparently it's really good. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm just not ready for Fourth Wing yet. So I ended up going with The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon. I don't know what magical creatures in this book, actually. The other reason I know there's a magical creature in this book is because Book Roast did a video about some of the more difficult prompts, and she had her Patreon users submit books that fit those prompts, and this one was one of those prompts, and so this one got submitted. So I know there is a magical creature in it. It may not even be important. It might just be a little side creature. But it's there. It's in it, so it counts. Yay. And the final book I have on my list for August is in Demonology Distinguished, which was put a few books on a poll and let others decide. So I went into the Orilium Discord and I put on a poll what books to read. I think I did Vicious by V.E. Schwab, Pride of the Orange Tree, because I did say I want to read it. Oh my gosh, I can't remember the other two. Something to do with a snake. I don't remember. And then, like, the second book in a series that I had started in July, which I also don't remember the name of. But anyways, Vicious won by V.E. Schwab, so that is the book that I'm reading for that one. And it won by, like, a lot. That one had, like, 40 votes, and the second highest was Pride of the Orange Tree at 20. And then, like, I think maybe 3 people voted for the snake one, and then nobody voted for the second book in the series, mostly because it's probably not a very well-known series, and people were like, what is that? And the first book wasn't very good, but it was just... We'll talk about it in my July wrap-up, but this book was, like, just bad enough that I was like, I gotta keep going. I gotta see what goes on. So, yeah. Those are my 9 books for August. I think for September and October, I am not going to make a TBR, which I think is going to be very difficult for me. I like putting books into prompts, but I'm going to try and be a more mood reader. Maybe I'll finally work on all those series I started and never finished, because the second book of any series never seems to fit any prompt, and I like studying new series. That's pretty much it. The pretty short, quick, sweet, short video. Just talk about what I'm reading, and yeah, just a reminder that starting August 3rd, all of my videos are going to be coming out on Thursdays at 10 a.m. Central Time. I didn't say that earlier. Central Time. I think that's everything. And that I'll be doing reading vlogs. Maybe. Hopefully. I'm going to try. Try my best. Okay, well, I hope you all have a wonderful morning, noon, night, whatever it is, wherever you are. And I love you so much. And say goodbye to Marvin. Goodbye.